Well, we're all here once again. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Plenty to talk about today as we want to follow up from the short-term timeframes. Yesterday, we were looking at some sideways and down action to fill out the bottom side of the range to 11,300-ish region. We did get that test, then popping back up to the short-term top side of the range at 11.5. So where does that lead us into today for Hump Day, good old Wednesday as it is? Anyways, actually, before we get into that, I need to make an announcement. Okay, so there's been like an increasing bot attack on my YouTube videos here. If you actually like go through the comment section sometime, there's just this really bizarre like setup actually where these bots will be speaking in like somewhat broken English with like really proper names, and then also it'll always like include some sort of name and then like a phone number to a WhatsApp. Okay, now I can't confirm myself that this is actually 100% a scam, but I'd guess that if I had to put my money on it, it's probably a scam. It's probably not real, and I thought that it was important to make a small announcement there. I imagine that most people already know that. Probably most people can figure that one out, but in case you are new to the internet, then definitely take care with that. It's a little bit sketchy, and for whatever reason, YouTube just hasn't done anything about it. This is probably not even worthwhile talking about, but I would figure that they would be able to, deal with something like that, so we've seen in like their all-knowing power, but I guess just not their priorities right now. Anyways, looking at the Krown trading application over here, which we found at app.crowntrading.net, what do we see? We do see open interest actually did come down a little bit more than 50 million from yesterday to today, back down to that $2.1.5 billion marker, a little bit above there to be fair. But what does that suggest as Bitcoin essentially just plays at a range consolidation? It's not really telling us anything that we don't already know. We see no break of even the short-term time frame range, so correlated with open interest, not really much to make out of that. Anyways, looking at the Bitcoin dominance, literally the same from what we looked at yesterday to today. So altcoins doing absolutely nothing while Bitcoin is sideways on the whole, on the most part. Obviously, there's going to be some outliers here and there. And looking at the fear and greed index, we also came back down about 3 points back to the neutral zone officially from a 56 to a 53. And looking at the data tab over here, do we see anything of interest right now? No, not really. Global funding rate coming back down into parity, except look at this. Femex is like way the fuck on outer space, 0.04%. Longs pay shorts. FTX and OKX are actually negative rates right now, negative 0.01%. I mean, it's basically nothing, but it is interesting whenever you do see a negative rate right there. Everything else par for the course, 0.01%, so we don't really have anything to make out of that. And I'd really just go with the bulk of them right here, as that does seem like there is good agreement. So with that in mind, let's go back to the charts right over here and put on exactly what we're looking at yesterday. So yesterday I think we were trading like somewhere right around here, and we did say that likely comes back down and tests around the bottom side of the range, somewhere around 11.3 to 11.350-ish region. We got that, and now popping back up to the top side of the range, and so far getting rejected. So what's most likely to happen today? We're probably likely to play out a range today of the same nature. And would I take the same trade? If I got the opportunity today to once again buy 11.3 and maybe sell somewhere in the upper 11.4s or maybe even 11.5, yeah, I would. I take it until it doesn't work anymore. Basically, very simple stuff. But that's sometimes the right way, at least for myself. Anyways, looking at this right here, obviously we should cover up exactly what happened, or not exactly what happens, because there's no exact shit that goes on, but what the ranges are looking like today, and if anything's really changed here. So if Bitcoin were to break out the top side of this range, which right now is very obviously 11,500-ish region, we don't even really need this liquid zone right here, as it's probably just more confusing than anything. Just this just little small area right here, I would be looking for this one to likely come back down and test around the bottom side of the range once again. I do not really look for a break of the top side of this range, at least immediately, seeing as we are getting rejected right now. And actually, this is perfect. We're actually doing it right now. Oh, yes. Show me those red I almost said red girthy green dildos. Whoopsies. A little bit of an early morning over here. As you can see, it's pitch fucking black, and it's almost 7 a.m. Anyways, living in a true cave today. So if Bitcoin were to take the top side of this region, which I'm not necessarily looking for it to happen right now, but above 11,500-ish region, on at the very least a 2-hour closure, probably a 4-hour closure would look a lot better. I would look for another move back up towards the blue box territory over here, somewhere around 11.8 region, give or take about $50. And with that in mind, we should also talk about the downside as well. Same sort of floor from yesterday, right around 11.3, we'll call it, just easier to say. Technically, it's a little bit between about 11.3 and 11.350-ish region, but at the end of the day, close enough is close enough. And as long as we're above there, I do look at this as more or less healthy sideways action, consolidating, getting ready for another try to the upside. However, if this area does break, there actually is a nice little trade here that'll be eyeing as 11.3 likely does give all the way down to at the very least 11.1 and probably even 11,000 even. That's where I actually once again do get interested in a long-term or a potential long-term trade. trade actually, as down around this region right here, this is a more long-term pivot, and that means that it does govern a more long-term price action. So if Bitcoin were to break below this region, then obviously that's a change of behavior. We'd be looking for major, massive moves to the well, maybe not immediately to the downside, but back down another 400, 500 bucks back to about 11.6 or 11.7, wherever this trend line kind of comes in and meets price action. I imagine probably does do it somewhere around the 618, if that even does happen to begin with. But first and foremost, I'd be looking for a bounce off this region. And like I said, it would be of interest for potentially a long-term trade for myself. And again, not because it's guaranteed to work out, but mostly because it just offers up a nice little risk-reward potential with a very obvious area to be managing on. So looking at this right now on the daily, it does look a little bit more like it does want to come to the downside. I would say taking out yesterday's low to the downside at 11,312.5 would be troubling. But because things are so close here, and because the lower term timeframes are taking actually over right now with this short term consolidation, I would actually really be waiting more so for a 2-hour or 4-hour delta closure below that region rather than an actual wick below. And it does look like we are going to test it probably maybe even during this video, which would be pretty damn cool. But as long as Bitcoin is essentially closing 4-hour deltas above the 21, I look at this as more or less a healthy consolidation, trading sideways and getting ready for a break to the upside, probably later this week or maybe even into next week. For right now, looking at momentum oscillators, what do we see? 4-hour stochs coming down right now, but do we have any trend lines to be aware of? Yes, indeed we do. Going all the way back on over here to the 4th of September, getting all these lows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and potentially 5. Now, a lot of the time when you do see a trend line like this, you will see the last test technically considered a test, but it will actually be front ran in a region like this, showing you that momentum is actually increasing over time. And in this case right here, if we were to start to see this one turn around, that would be another damn good indication that we'd very likely feel like fucking Elmer Fudd or some shit. That we very likely see this one at the very least give another try to the top side of the range and probably break to the top side of the range. Looking at 4-hour RSI, what do we see? Caretaker RSI printing a divergence there, but that's going to be undone, and I'm using some very generous settings right now, so obviously that is not divergence in the way that it's defined. But I don't want to confuse anyone, and obviously it's dotted anyway, so that means it's not really real. But if Bitcoin does break this area, yes, I would actually be interested in price action. So everything else kind of takes a second nature to that. In the 4-hour RSI, do we see anything of note here? I mean, long term is still constructive for whatever 4 hours is worth long term. Short term though, sideways and neutral. Not really anything much to make out of it, as it just kind of oscillates between the bullish control zone and the neutral zone, which would imply once again that this is a healthy consolidation. Things will change though. Things will change below 11, especially 11.1 obviously, but even on the short term below 11.3, things will change. So. They will change. Looking at historical volatility percentile, we are still coming back all the way down to single-digit reads. And with that in mind, well, let's just reflect upon the last time that we actually saw something like this, which was not so long ago, actually 2 days ago on the 12th of October, before this explosion, the Boolah-ish explosion from here at about 11,200 all the way to 11,800, fulfilling our measure move target from the ascending triangle that Bitcoin put in over the month of September. Before that, we have a couple other reads of interest. This one right here, obviously precipitating the big bad breakout out of that month-long base before this move from about 11.6 all the way to, basically 11.8 really. And so once again, we are kind of back down into that region. So I would be looking for today to probably give an actual try just based off of that to actually break the region. And I expect to see something a little more aggressive on the hourly if that is going to be true. And we don't actually see that right here. The hourly is very obviously contracting. So with that in mind, am I looking at the wrong things? Perhaps yes. Let's go over here to the 2-hour. See if this one agrees. No, not really. Not really agreeing with anything. The 3-hour also looks like a contraction phase as well. So what does that align with? It aligns with sideways, most likely sideways. So again, just kind of looking for this range to play out a little bit more. If you do want to be a little bit more generous with it, you obviously be using the last prior low right there at 11,250. But I do believe on a 4-hour closure or even a 2-hour closure, 11.3 breaking is probably gonna do it anyways. But technically speaking, prior low right there. So as long as that one holds, technically, somewhat fine, I guess. But I wouldn't really look at it like such. Anyways, what else do you want to look at while we're here? We do have plenty of things to talk about on our secondary charts, but before we get there, let's actually go over the higher term timeframes right here, of which the 12-hour is not one, but I would like to start off with it just because got to go, through the motions here, of course, through all the proper rigmarole. Anyways, looking at 12-hour stochs are coming down right now, so that is a little bit problematic as well. Looking at 12-hour RSI breaking the exponential and potentially getting kicked out of the bullish control zone. Again, I do look at this overall, going back for the last ever since July. So July, August, September, October, so almost 4 months now, as constructive behavior. Short term though, likely does actually trade a little bit down here, is what it would show. And with 12 momentum turn in that same direction as well, yeah, I do think that we will be testing the bottom side of at the very least a short-term range. Now again, if the short-term range breaks, I do extend that move all the way down to about $11,000 base or 11.1, depending upon where exactly that liquid zone comes in. I think it's kind of encompassing the whole region. And with that in mind, I'd still be looking for a bounce there, to be fair as well. Looking at the daily, what do we see? We do see kind of the same things too. Daily Stokes looking like want to cross back to the downside as well. Daily RSI, again, long-term, very constructive, very good behavior here, but short-term, as we spoke about the last couple of days, once you get this first test back into the bullish control zone, after being away from it for quite some time, typically does get rejected for like a quick move. You see one right here, you see one right here, you see one, actually you don't see one right there, but fair enough, you get my point, and likely does come back down and base around the exponential. That could also come with some sideways action over here too, so it's not necessarily implying that we're gonna have downside, but I do think that the daily kind of reveals all. And when we were looking at the lower term time frames and matching up all the historical volatility percentiles and realizing that they didn't necessarily exactly agree with each other, I think that the hourly is probably the most accurate with regards to what it's doing, because it's just been the most consistent. And looking at that and matching it up with the daily, it does look like we are in a greater contraction phase, we're in a smaller contraction phase right here within the context of the greater one for the long term, going all the way back to actually September, which is of interest as well, because this is all just one major massive consolidation as it is to be considered from this time frame. But with that in mind, what's very interesting right here is seeing that historical volatility percentile starting to increase and expand. That would suggest that this next move is very likely looming in front of our face. And every time I say looming now, I think of Pineapple Express, which is actually rewatched that movie recently with Elsa, and it's a lot funnier than I remember it. Actually, I don't remember it as as funny. And Danny McBride's he's a goddamn comedic genius, I do think. Anyways, I think there's like some sort of hair in my eye or some bullshit, and I need to take a sip of this watermelon. I'm really, really thirsty. Oh, also, I forgot to say, massive appreciation for all the feedback on the Forex Fortress series. It's actually been really fun to do, and I've actually really been enjoying it. Forex is, I'm just like, it's exotic, It's no, it actually feels a lot more professional than Bitcoin land, to be honest with you. But there's a lot more unique things to be talking about there, and I greatly appreciate the feedback on it. And I will definitely be finishing it at the very least this week of doing it every day. Maybe in the future I might do it just like a few times a week, or maybe not, just depending on moves. But for right now, like, everything's moving every day. Like, it's so fucking exciting, actually. Anyways, finishing off the daily over here. Yeah, I think actually we did get most of it. Also, daily Jewel getting close. No, not necessarily getting close, but once it gets around the critical zone, we actually do see a lot of highs get put in. We're going back to April 2019, going back to January 2020, going back to May 2020, more recently in end of July. So that was this high right here. That was this high right here. That was this high right here. And this just major high right here. But we're not quite there just yet. So that will be of interest, and I imagine that will start to take off if Bitcoin does get anywhere around 12,000, which I should now talk about, greater targets to the upside, because I haven't really gone fully through that just yet. We spoke about the downside. I actually don't think that the downside is going to happen here, but again, my opinion is irrelevant. My opinion's wrong all the time, and it's not something that I trade. I trade technical analysis, and like I said, just going level by level here. Keeping things relatively simple, not because people are not capable of understanding more. It's just this is the way that I look at things. Anywhere above any sort of a closure above 11.5, even a move above 11.5 probably does do it as well, to be fair. Yesterday's wick high, it looks like, or maybe actually that's today's. Yeah, that is today's wick high. Sorry. So that would be on the 14th to be exact. Probably does get continuation up to 11.8. But what happens if Bitcoin actually breaks above 11.8, or even just takes out the last wick high, that 11.730-ish region? Well, I would be looking for extension to the next area of relevance, right around about $12,050 to $12,100 right here. And it's the exact same thing that we've been saying all throughout the month of September. All of the areas that were relevant to, all of the relevant areas in August are going to be relevant if Bitcoin does move the upside, which it is moving right here. So with that in mind, those areas where all of the major pivots for price action, just kind of, eyeballing it right in here, not doing anything too crazy. Here's your 11.5 region. Here's your 11.8 region before this major shattering down. And then, of course, a slew of highs being caught right around 12.1, we'll call it. So that'd be the next relevant one to the upside if 11.8 breaks, which right now is a big question mark. So with that in mind, I did not check out the lower term time frame momentum oscillators in the full-on way that I wanted to. We looked at the 4-hour Stokes. That would be of interest right now, but that trend line's still a little bit looming lower. Same thing for the 3-hour. You can actually just visualize one right here. All good. Or a little bit. It's going to be a little more like that. Of course, it's not going to be the exact same as the fucking 4-hour. No shit. And also going to be protecting against the edge of the bearish control zone, which is of interest. Bi-hourly actually is already hitting what would have been that same sort of area and now popping back up, and we see hourly doing what? Popping back down right now. So we do see bifurcation between all these. They're not necessarily in concert. So what does that usually align with? Sideways. And in this case right here, are we going to test the downside of the range, or maybe we just tested the downside of the range? Possibly yes, but that would be more of an aggressive read right there. I'd still kind of look for 11.3 to be the area to be watchful of, as that's actually where things do change. Right here, just kind of hanging out in the middle of the range. I give up. My fucking voice sucks. Not relevant to my trading style right now is what I'm trying to say. All right, let's go check out CM, or actually no, before we do that, Jesus, we need to go through the 2-day and 3-day, because I think that we just sit in did we just sit in a 2-day yesterday? No, we actually, okay, yes, so we close it tonight. The way that I look at the 2-day is also still bullish here too, mostly because we do see that it's just a backfill on the last 2-day open. Probably does, if it does close anywhere above really 11.3, I don't really look at that as anything problematic long term for this one. According to a 2-day Stokes going to be nice and erect here as well. 2-day RSI getting rejected from that from that first pass on the bullish control zone, but still long term, this is very good long term. So always have to keep that in context, but long term does imply maybe a few months out. Actually, looking at 3-day, what do we see? I think that we just got a new one on this one, or did we? No, we didn't. We get a new one tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time as well. So what to make out of that? 3-day Stokes are popping up right now through the neutral zone. Don't really have much to make out of that. I do want to refocus on this whole trend line right here. Remember when we were calling this out over the last few months? This trend line is actually goes all the way back to December 2018, and it's called a lot of the major lows since then. December 2018 obviously was when Bitcoin was trading like here at 3100-ish region, and the next few lows that it is around is, I believe, this guy right here before about a $3,000 pump, which was inevitably a failure, by the way, and then this one right here, which was quite literally the low at about 4,800, a major cycle low, we could call that. And then once again, right here at this test at about 10,000 bucks even. So with that in mind, all of those moves typically were encompassed by a lot more continuation, except for this baby right here. So what does that mean long term? It just means that still, long-term bias is probably fine here, as long as the 3-day especially doesn't close below, let's call it like 11.2 actually would be kind of the harbinger of death and despair right there. Should be mentioned as well that the 10 symbol is about to cross the upside and complete across the upside of the 21, and long term, just kind of going over this one. It's not gonna be perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect in order to give some decent signals, as we do see this one right here, a little bit of a kiss and a go for all the way from about 9,200 to about 12,000, or a little bit above 12,000. We have this cross right here, actually terrible. You know what? This one's actually not very good. Well, actually, no, this one actually does get a decent move here for the short term. Actually, that's 20%. Okay, well, I take what I said back. That's completely fine. Well, never mind. This one right here, terrible timer. This one right here, pretty damn good. This one right here, pretty damn good actually as well, getting the major mass move to the downside, a little bit of fake out right there too. I think that this was actually maybe operating better on the 2-day. Which one was I watching this one on? Yeah, the 2-day does seem to be a little bit better with it. Very, 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 very simple stuff, but does kind of help with the overall bias, on time frames like this. Anyways, going over here to the weekly as well, I think that it's, important to reiterate this. Every time that Bitcoin's been above the yellow 21 exponential moving average and it has had a positive slope, Well, there's your bull markets going all the way back to 2012, going all the way over here to 2014 from a price point of about $2.50 to $1,000. So that's a mind-numbingly crazy move. Same thing to the downside right here for the bear market of 2014, 2015. Same thing to the upside right here, all the way from 250 to $20,000 in 2018, and then all the way to the downside throughout 2018, 2019, crossing up right here, looking good, and more recently up right again as well. And now Bitcoin's actually above all major moving averages with the way that it closed last week. And so, if I did have a call right now, I don't think that Bitcoin's going to be breaking down below 11,000 at the very least this week. If it were to happen, realistically, I actually do remain a little bit more north side angled here. What's this? All right. And looking at weekly Stokes, we actually should be keeping an eye on this one too, because it is rejecting, it is rejecting the neutral zone and wanting to go back into the bullish control zone right here. And it will naturally cross the upside if it closes anywhere here or higher. So with that in mind, and also pairing it up with the RSI, this is a very constructive read as well. I mean, this is just more encompassing. And to me, the next time that we get back in the bullish control zone is likely the time that we stay in the bullish control zone for a while. So weekly RSI, pairing up with Stokes does still give the bias to the upside on the long-term direction. Lower term timeframes mixed, basically they're not necessarily in concert right now, which makes me believe that we'd play it a little bit of sideways in the short term, probably test both sides of the short-term range, that being 11.3 to 11.5. And, if I did have to call it, I do think that it will break out to the upside, but I'd want to see it in real time because right now there's not really much to make out of that at the current moment. Anyways, let me put back on all of these major moving averages right here, and let's go over to the secondary charts and see what we got. Whoops, that's a 4-hour. Let me get the fuck off the 4-hour. And what do we got in the 12-hour right here? Just crawling above the 10 simple, not really getting much from this. DMI ADX is interesting here, but the easy part of the move has happened, and we actually are getting divergence on this right now between this point and this point. So you know what? I probably would be looking for another high to be put in on this one, but once you get the 3 drives of divergence, I'd be looking for a greater pullback. MACD starting to turn down a bit as well, so it is of slightly cautionary here. See what the daily says. Daily getting rejected by the topside Challenger band as it is right now, but usually when you do see a read like this, and the read that I'm talking about is when you do see a bunch of dildos closing above the topside Challenger band, and then you get the first one that closes below and just barely below like this. A lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, the next successive one will actually it'll turn into a fake out, and the next one actually does pop back above. And that's actually very, very interesting here, because where is the topside Challenger band? It's right above 11,500-ish region. So any sort of a closure above there, and then yes, I'd still be looking at Bitcoin in the process of trending and likely to reach up towards 11.8, and very, 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 very likely by extension after that 12,000. But for right now, it's not necessarily time to be super aggressive, at least for the very, very short term, in my opinion. Looking at daily DMI or DMI ADX, what do we see? We do see DMI plus is dominant, and the ADX is actually getting a lot of strength right here, which is very, 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 very interesting. But pairing that up with the 12-hour probably does play a little bit of short term down. Actually, might have even seen that, because we did get all the way down to 11,370 right there. I still got like another $100 to fill out the downside of the range, so fair enough. But overall, this would still be long-term healthy. So with all of that in mind, I do think that it's important to kind of reflect on these, upon these things. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I can very, 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 very easily turn into a, let's call it like a medium-term bear. And with a medium-term bear, that actually would be about $1,000 move here, just kind of eyeballing it. Any sort of a closure below 11,000 or even 11.1 is going to be very bad. I would be looking for an extension over time, maybe not on that same drive, but over time, maybe it takes a couple weeks, whatever it ends up being, probably all the way back down to like $10,000 base or $10,300 down here. So I do think that it's important to say that, because that is a big area of price action, flipping above and below. So taking back out 11,000 or the downside would be, well, not very well interpreted by the market. But as you can see right now, we are above it, so fair enough. Don't really have to break that bias until that actually happens. Today, what do we see here? Still closing above the top side Challenger band, and we will actually continue to close above the top side Challenger band with any sort of a closure today above 11,460, and that would actually be damn good to me as well. So if one of those two things happens, either the daily, well, obviously the daily and the 2-day can close at the same time, but if the 2-day closes above 11,450, or especially just even 11,500, which would also put the daily above as well, we're very likely to see upside continuation. I really like to back away from making more aggressive statements like that. I don't want to be put in the same pile of the Moon Boys and the Doom Boys. More often than not, shit just goes sideways. And I just don't know how many times you can fucking say imminent this, imminent that before people start like saying, I think you're crying wolf right now. I don't know what's going on right there. It's very interesting. I'd actually like to interview people who watch that just to know. And it's not even like throwing shade at anyone. It's not even like shitting on anyone. I'm just genuinely curious, what is the allure? Anyways, looking at 2-day DMI, it is DMI plus is dominant, ADX is strengthening, but I really want to see it get a little bit closer to the threshold there before looking at that as a legitimate signal. The 2-day MACD is actually a lot more interesting, bottoming out of the zero read right here and then increasing its curvature to the upside. So yes, the 2-day I think is going to reveal all right here. I think it's the easiest chart to read. It's the most obvious chart. Any sort of a closure, especially above 11.5, but technically speaking above 11.460. And likely continuation to the upside. At the very least, 11.8, probably 12,000. Is there anything else that we want to look at here? Might as well look at the 3-day while we're here, I guess. Not making much out of the 3-day chart. If anything, the 3-day chart's actually a little more on the bear side. 3-day MACD is, well, potentially crossing the upside, but do I trust it? Do I not trust it? What the fuck is going on over there? Getting too many notifications. DMI plus just got dominant and the ADX is strengthening. I want to see that, be carried on for at least another read or two, but so far so good. That would actually be very interesting to be looking for targets above 12,000 if that were to happen. Obviously, it's not going to be confirmed like right here today. We need at least like another 3-day dildo on top of the one that's going to be closing tonight. Okay, we're already 25 minutes into this bitch. Let's look at Mr. Buterol. We'll save the Forex for later. Mr. Buterol, do you have any bias buster boners over here too? You little fucker. Yeah, 381. Alrighty, let's do it. It looks like the same chart as Bitcoin. 390 is the base, is the resistance to the upside. Base to the downside is going to be about 373. Kind of the same range. I mean, it is the same range that we were looking at from yesterday, isn't it? This one's a little bit less obvious, so I think Bitcoin's going to be easier to decide direction, but I'd be looking at it, somewhat like this. 4-hour did just get a golden cross, so there you go. Fair enough. If I did call it just from Mr. Buterol, yeah, I do think that it tests more upside here. Did get some hidden bullish divergence being initiated off this current low that just got ticked. Then again, did that mostly play out? Going from okay, so it didn't get this low right here, got this low right here, so it does say buy 375 and gives you all the way up to about 385. Yeah, fair enough. Could you say that that's played out? Yeah, I do think so. $10 move on a 4-hour dildo time frame. That's completely fine, especially off of a hidden divergence call right there too. Momentum oscillators, are they doing anything of note here? Not really. Yeah, I'm not really getting much from this. So I think, I think it's just easier to kind of default to Bitcoin. Go look at Link. How about some Link versus dollars? There's been a lot of people asking about that. Let's see. What do we got over here? Link versus dollar actually looks short-term bearish to me. That's not good. No, very, very short-term actually bullish. I'd be looking for it to pop back up to 11.5. Not really making any crazy calls right there. Daily would be daily is bullish with any sort of a closure above 11.5, which is interesting because that actually would be where the 4-hour does want to go right now. And if that condition is met, I would be looking over the next week or two for a move all the way back up to about 12.75. Just going level by level here, not anything too crazy. Momentum oscillators on the daily are still pointed north. Daily RSI constructive and looking good. Yeah, I would be looking for this one to give probably some tries higher. And again, very, very easy to be managing this one as the downside does get opened up once again with any sort of a closure on even a 12-hour, maybe even a 4-hour below $10.5. I would be targeting to move all the way back down to the bottom side of the range at like 8.5, and that'd probably come with a Bitcoin move below 11,100ish region. Am I looking for that to happen overall? Not really, no, but I do think that is important to kind of call those things out, I guess. And is there anything else that I wanted to check out? Look at the, I don't know, what do we want to look at? Some Bitcoin dominance bullshit over here. How about that? Bullish. Bullish. Long term. Short term, don't know. Short term, I don't make anything out of this. This is trendless garbage bullshit. Long term, though, very likely bullish. Daily does look bearish, though. Daily does look bearish, but when I say long term, I'm talking about weekly, monthly. I do think this one's gonna absolutely just fucking rock to the upside, but that's gonna take 3 to 6 months at the very least, probably more like 6 months to a year. So yeah, fair enough. All right, let's go back to Bitcoin. Let's wrap this bitch up. Ranges are pretty much the same shit as yesterday. 11.3 to the downside, 11.5 to the upside. Above 11.5, I look for moves back up to 11.8. Any sort of a closure on a 4 hour above 11, so let's call it 700 or even 750, and I would actually extend that run all the way to about 12,000. That likely will drag up our 4 hour Stokes to the upside as well. To the downside, a little bit more diabolical, but any sort of a 2 hour or 4 hour total closure below 11.3, I would target another move back down to about $11,000 base. That area is critical though. If that area fails, now we got to change behavior on the long-term time scale, and I'll be looking for, well, likely a move overall, just coming back down to the low $10,000 region. Probably takes a little bit of time to actually extrapolate, but that also would imply that, coming back down to $11,000, I actually would be looking at first and foremost as an opportunity, potentially even for a long-term play here. So again, just not for any other reason, because it's easy to manage upon that region. Probably a good time to reiterate, this is not financial advice, not a financial advisor. This is the furthest thing from financial advice, and thank you for calling that one out, Mr. IBLB. You are fucking amazing, my friend. I think that's it for me today. I want to be wishing everyone the best of the best, even those out there who might be wishing ill to others. You know what? Even you, my friend, even you. I actually do wish you well. I sincerely mean that, and I want to look you in the eyes right now, and it's all good. It's all good. There you go. All right, with that said, take care, and until next time.